All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. A couple of people might join us, but one, we want to say we're so happy that you're here. I'm Jen Hansen, the Director of Language Supports and Services, and I'm going to let my teammate also introduce herself, who's with us today.
I'm April B. Miller, an ELS partner.
We are so, like we said, thank you for being here. We are so happy to have you here. We are promising to give you information that is useful to you and start off a really effective collaboration between our departments. Make sure you have the resource link in the chat. And we want to do a little warm up with you to welcome you and to hear how you're showing up in the space. So you will see on your screen, you will see some lovely animals. Go ahead.
So as you look at this screen, choose the one that resonates with how you feel in this moment in time and drop that number in the chat. You can expand with Y or just a number, whatever you would like to do.
We see a 2, a 1. Yes.
Yeah.
Love it. I think I'm the owl. I'm like curious. Yes, we've got some undivided attention. We've got the cats looking everywhere. Well, the one cat on the top, and then we got the one cat lounging. Love it.
Nice.
Excellent. Excellent.
I feel like it's definitely a #1 day for me. All right. So, oops, sorry.
No, you're good. So I want to tell you about the why that we are doing this. Like I said, I'm Jen Hansen. I'm so excited to be in Cherry Creek. This is my first year here. I spent 25 years in public education with multilingual learners in Title I situations. So excited to be with you. And the why that we're doing this is, as you know from your work in schools, MLs are everywhere. Our multilingual learners are everywhere. And we want to make sure that our work in schools and your work in schools can create coherence. So through structures like PLCs, common planning groups, as well as the 15-day challenge, when you're thinking about your boulders, rocks, and butterflies, this is our hope to merge those to make sure that all teachers can see those unified and to see that when we plan for our multilingual learners, we are actually meeting the goals of our 15-day challenge as well as our PLC. We also want to make sure that we can work together so that you teach us, we teach you about what our kids need. And so that's why we're here today. And we worked with Darla as well as Monica and Toby to launch this as part of an ongoing partnership and reciprocal learning. So we're really grateful to you and thank you for showing up today as a learner. Do have your camera on if you are able to. We are going to have lots of opportunities to interact, hear your voice, put things in the chat, and a lot of time to really do some application with our activity. All right, so this is our first interaction. So I need we're going to read these out loud because we want to get them in the space and we want to get your voice in the space. So I am going to give you the opportunity to come off mute. You're going to read one person reads one outcome. The next person reads the next outcome. So first one, if someone would like to come off mute and read Anchor Tier 1, that first outcome.
I will.
Thank you.
It says, anchor Tier 1 instructional decisions in the understanding that language development, literacy, and student well-being are inseparable, ensuring MLs experience grade-level rigor and belonging.
Excellent. Remind us of your name.
Faye Ampey.
Yay! Faye, thank you. All right. A volunteer to read the second outcome.
I will.
Thank you.
I'm Brooke Costinas.
Thank you, Brooke.
Explain how stages of language acquisition impact comprehension, speaking, reading, and writing, and use this understanding to inform instructional planning across content areas.
Excellent. Number 3.
I can read it.
Thank you.
It says, coach teachers to embed linguistic scaffolds within Tier 1 instruction. Some examples are structured talk, visual, sentence frames, strategic grouping, rather than relying on pull-out supports. And I'm Ann Aspinis from Highline.
Thank you, Ann.
And Tracy.
Yay! Thank you. All right, our last objective.
I'll do it.
Thank you.
Use assessment data through a language and literacy lens to guide instruction and coaching, expanding access to Tier 1 learning and reducing disproportionate referrals to Tier 2 and Tier 3. Kaylee
Excellent.
Maher.
Say one more time. I'm sorry.
Kaylee Maher, I'm at Sunrise.
Yay. Okay. Thank you, Kaylee. So as you look at these objectives, do any questions pop into your head? You might have questions later. We'll have time. I want to give you a second to digest those. All right. Go ahead. April's up next.
Okay, so for this activity, you're going to need that paper and pencil. And we're going to engage in an activity that we ask our MLs to engage in multiple times throughout the day, often several times throughout a week. So in a moment, you're going to see a sentence, and I'm going to ask you just to copy that sentence exactly as you see it. When you see that timer go off, you'll just put your pencil down whether you finish or not. Okay, so here's that sentence. I wish I had my favorite snack. So write that exactly as you see it. Okay, that time is up. There we go. Okay, so now put your pencil down. You're going to write this sentence, the same process as before, exactly as you see it. Okay, go ahead and put your pencil down. We're going to do it one more time. You still have that same 15 seconds. Go ahead and write this sentence exactly as you see it. Oh my goodness. I'm just going to count.
We'll count. Third sentence.
Okay, so that's about 15 seconds. So wherever you're at, if you were able to finish, great. If you weren't, that's okay too. Put your pencil down. Come off mute. What's just your first reaction to that activity? How did it feel? What were you thinking?
I felt pretty good with 1 and 2. 3, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to do this.
It definitely got more challenging as it went.
One more.
We were realizing that we should have been writing right to left for the last one and not left to right like we typically do.
Yeah, so you mentioned it already. As the cognitive demand got higher because you were less familiar with the language, that felt a little more uneasy. It was harder to accomplish that task. And your distance from familiarity with that language makes it harder, right? So this is why it's really important to know our MLs as individuals, but also as students, so that we understand the language proximity and we can support them with the appropriate scaffolds that they need. So that first sentence you were probably all very successful with because you're all fluent English speakers. That second sentence is in Spanish, and even if you don't know Spanish, it shares similar alphabet characters as English, so you could still copy that. It also goes left to right. You were familiar with that. That third sentence, we extend that language proximity. Now we're using characters that are not familiar to the English language. It also reads in reverse than what we're expecting, and we're not used to making those movements when we write, so it takes our attention and our focus a lot more to achieve this task. And this activity just kind of grounds us back to our why of what we're doing today. And we're intentionally planning for and thinking about the scaffolds that will best support the MLs in front of us so that they can access the content in Tier 1 instruction. So we want to ask you to keep this in mind. We're going to come back to it a little bit later when we intentionally talk about scaffolds and how to make sure our MLs can be successful with content grade level grade level content.
All right, so again, we want to ground us and connect to what we're doing. This is not separate from the 15-day challenge and our collaborative team. So on the left of your screen, you're going to see those PLC questions. I'm sure you live and breathe them every day, so we are not going to read those to you. But we also want to connect this to the learning assessment cycle. And so when we are thinking about this in our kids, this connects to all of these questions. So who are the kids in front of us? What do we want them to learn? How do we know if they've learned it? What do we do if they don't? And what do we do if they already do? So even if you are at a school with 400 MLs or at a school with 5 MLs, and we have both in our district, this is still crucial to infuse and lay over in a coherent way for who are our kids in front of us. And so we want to name that your voice is in collaboration with us to make sure that this happens in every common planning team and every PLC.
Okay, so on this slide, we're just going to give you a minute. Look at the very top where you see this table 1 and you see proficiency level trajectory. Just take a minute and look at this. So as you're looking for it, I'm draw your attention to this level 1 increasing to level 2 and the timeline needed. So an ML who's a level 1 needs 1 year to get to a level 2. And then you can see down below an ML that's a level 2 needs 2 years to get to a level 3, and then 3 years to get to a level 4. So when we talk about MLs, we also want to make sure that we continue to talk about them in terms of asset-focused language. So we have those level 1s to a 2.4. Those are our new to country, new to school, new to English kiddos. Then we have that 2.5 to that 3.9. So those are the kids in that level 2 going into that level 3, 4. And those are limited English proficient. We also say learning English to be more asset focused. And then our 4.0 are fluent English proficient. At 4.0, we look at our MLs and look for them to be redesignated. And to be redesignated, they need a 4.0 in their overall score on access, as well as a 4.0 in their overall literacy score on access. And if you're not familiar with access, which I hope you've heard it a lot around your building this week and last, because we are currently access testing, but it is a state assessment that measures ML's proficiency in 4 language domains: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And that is an annual assessment that we use to document their growth, but as well as their proficiency. So when they get to that level 4, in overall and literacy, we look at redesignating them into this fluent English proficient category. What else do you notice about this chart?
We would love to hear, we would love to hear 1 or 2 voices. What else do you notice?
It could also be something that you were surprised by.
Hi, Anna and Tracy recognize how it takes longer to move from a level 2 to a level 3,
And also
and also a 3 to 4.
Yes, very important. Thank you. One other voice. If you haven't shared, we encourage you to share. What else do you notice or surprises you? We're really good at wait time because we teach multilingual learners, so we can give you time. We'll wait. One other surprise or noticing.
I think just that it takes that 8 years of time, to kind of fully get to a place where maybe they're confident with the language. That's a long time.
Absolutely. An important note about that is that may be the time that proficiency takes, but you will notice with the yellow box around that, CDE gives us 6 years. And so not only our kids, but our growth scores as well as our achievement scores that are linked to access, we have that 6-year trajectory. So I appreciate you pointing out that difference. All right, thank you. So we want to talk about our kids first, all of our kids, right? Our whole district. So even though this says what is your school's data, I want to hold that thought because I want you to look at from left to right on this screen. Last year in our district, we had 8,000 students take access. Now, here's a middle question. Did our students in Cherry Creek make adequate growth? So if you look, 47% of our students did, and 46% of our students did not. That is consistent with a 3-year history of our access scores. I want to draw your attention especially to this speaking. So access is going to measure speaking, reading, writing, listening, plus some pieces like literacy and comprehension. Speaking, although language does not develop in a linear way, speaking is a gateway to other aspects of literacy. We're going to talk about that today. If you look at that across our district, 22.4% of our students were proficient or higher in speaking. That is an opportunity for growth. We want to show you this to give you the big picture. On your resource page later, you do not have to do this now, we gave you a click path for how to find your school's data. Now, your schools have been given this data, and the other program leads on this call, whom you will meet in a minute, have shown this to your specialists, but we want to make sure that you as coaches have that click path. So don't need to do the click path now, but we want you to keep those big picture things in mind. Okay, so we talked about this again. Our literacy goal, we all know this, part of our strategic plan, that all students need to be proficient by 2030 in literacy. I want you to look at that middle graph. Take a look at that. And can I have a new voice? I'm going to call on you to talk. I love to hear your voices. Can I have a new voice just tell me what you notice about that bar graph in the middle?
It's the same as the overall score or 1% lower.
Mm-hmm. So are you saying the overall and the speaking and the literacy? Is that what you're noticing?
Yeah, and it's the speaking's a tad higher than the literacy, but they're also all extremely low for where we want to be by 2030.
Absolutely. One other observation of that bar graph. Can you think about, anyone remember the number total of students who took access last year? Come off mute and say.
8,000.
8,000.
Yes! You get a piece of chocolate next time I see you. Thank you. So you think about 2030, we've got 18% of our multilingual learners who are proficient in literacy. We need to talk about why that matters in terms of how speaking connects to that. And that's part of the work we're going to do today. What I would love for you to do in the chat right now is to put, if you know how to do an emoji, right? So for example, for me, it's kind of a surprise because we got a lot of work to do. I would do that. If you don't know how to do the emoji, just type in the chat. Could you share how you feel or a reflection? So either choose an emoji or in the chat, share a reflection or a feeling based on this data. I'm going to give you about 1 minute. Go ahead. I see a couple emojis. Yeah, I see a lot of stoic faces, crying. Thank you, Emily. I feel like people's beliefs may be impacting our MLs. Absolutely. Thank you for saying that. Some frowns, some surprise. No worries, Emily. We appreciate your response. No worries. Okay. I really appreciate you reflecting on that with us. And that's part of the reason we're collaborating, because if you look at that last question, why does this matter? It matters for us and it matters for our kids in a very huge way. Because if you think about the choices that our kids have when they leave us, if they're only 18% of them that are proficient in literacy, they're not going to have very many choices. And we need to do better for our kids. So looking at this, I want to introduce you to a couple of things that we're going to talk about. Very important. That's okay. You can go to the next one. I want you to take a minute and look at this slide, because when we think about speaking for our MLs and we think about scaffolding, one of the things that I often hear in Cherry Creek is, oh, is that available in Spanish? Can I just get the math in Spanish? Can I translate for them? Can I use Google? Can I use AI? Can anyone tell me, and I want to hear your voice, what could be a potential pitfall with translation like that? What could be a potential problem?
Students just then rely on us. So they then block out the English that's coming in from teachers. And then they wait for the teacher then to translate everything for them. So then they don't absorb the English, because they know the teacher's gonna come through, translate it for them, and then they don't end up making the growth in English because they don't need to, because they're going to get it translated for them.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That's a really important thing to think about with translating. What else could be a potential pitfall with translating?
Translations are not always accurate. They can't necessarily interpret exactly what we're meaning, and we have no idea what it's putting back out. So we don't really know what it is that they're saying to our students if we don't have any background on the language.
Absolutely, right? It's not always accurate. I need one more that I want us all to think about that's really important. What is another potential pitfall with translating?
I don't know if this is the thing you're looking for, but if we have students who speak multiple languages, then I'm also thinking about the resources to translate into potentially 17 different languages for every single learning opportunity.
Absolutely. That's kind of a really good segue. So thank you. Do we in Cherry Creek, do we assess students in their proficiency in their first language? Does anyone know? No. So if we translate something and we say, oh, read this on Google Translate, or here's Chat GPT, and we hand it to a student, how do we know that they can read it? Right? All the other points that you brought up were really, really important about not having to potentially effectively and productively struggle with English. We may not know the proficiency. It may be an incorrect translation. We have students who speak 6 languages. Now that's translating. I want to make sure that we level set on this definition, because our students' first language and the assets that they bring with them are crucial. And so part of our work today, when we talk about speaking and we talk about ORAS and we talk about literacy, translanguaging, I want to give you a minute to read the right hand side of the screen, because this is where I need us to differentiate, where it's really important. So go ahead and read that. So translanguaging is a strategy and a very important, it's almost a pedagogy and a philosophy about using students' assets to catapult them to a higher level of English. This does not mean that as a coach or a specialist, you have to know the language of your students, meaning you do not have to speak it or read it proficiently. But if you can use their first language as an asset, for example, preview a text if you know they can read. For example, turn to your partner who's a same language speaker as you and translate the vocabulary. For example, in English, this sound means this. In Spanish, this sound means this. So those very simple, nuanced ways where it's, as you see in there, it's dynamic, that we use our wonderful brains of our kids and help them make those cross-linguistic connections between their first language and the English that they're learning. We are going to have an opportunity for us to practice this, but we wanted to level set on this definition. So hold any questions because I know we're going to get a time to practice. All right, so remember I said that word oracy earlier? Can anyone define that for us? And it's okay if it's a guess. But I would love you to come off mute and can you help us think about what that means? Don't look it up on your phone. It's okay to guess.
I think it would probably be the oral or speaking part of learning English or language in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. So, and can you all still see me? I'm just checking on tech. Can you see my face? Okay, perfect. Thank you. So I want you to look at the right-hand side, and this is listening and speaking with purpose. So a lot of times, have you ever been in a classroom where it's like, turn and talk, go? And kids are like, right? Or they may have a structure, they may have a sentence frame. Oracy is moving from just speaking to speak and listen with purpose. And so that our students can really effectively engage in whatever the learning target is for that day. Why this is so important is you will see that speaking proficiency, remember that 22.4%, that actually has decreased. This also connects to our literacy goal because if a student, we're going to show you a little slide in a minute, but STAR reading scores has a really high percentage of students needing intensive support. I would encourage you, if you have not looked at your own STAR data, please look at it from fall to winter. And I want you to look, who are the students in intensive support? Unfortunately, across our district, the most students needing intensive support as measured by STAR, winter interim, are multilingual learners. And so this is part of the work that we need to do to increase that oracy, because if we go to the next slide, what you're going to see is this connection that's really important. So Crashen, if you have extra time to read about, multilingual learner, this is kind of Crashen and Escamilla are two amazing people in the field who have done decades of research. And this is a little bit of their research kind of parsed out. But language is not linear, right? It's not like we all learn to read at the same time. We all learn to speak at the same time. But if we don't practice oracy, speaking and listening with purpose, we will never be a proficient reader and writer. Also, for our STAR Access and CMAS writing to maintain or go up, oracy connected to idea development is critical. And that is from Kathy Escamilla out of the University of Colorado Denver Bueno Center, right here in our own state. So I want to plant those two seeds with you and think about this. And then I would love to hear your voices. So next one. Okay, I would like you to, we're going to popcorn read. Okay, you get to come off mute and we're going to go left to right, kind of upper corner down. So I just want you to come off mute, whoever you is, and then read that first bubble. Then the second person will read the second bubble. Third person will read the third bubble. I'm going to count to 3 and I'm going to have you go. 1, 2, 3.
If I can think it,
I can say it.
If I can say it.
I can write it.
If I can write it.
I can read it.
I can read it.
Yes, thank you. This is really important. This seems simple, but it's that building block that we need. And so why we're here, part of the next slide is going to talk to you about this. Tier 1. Now, I know Maria Nielsen defines Tier 1 one way and Tier 2 another way. We are talking about Tier 1 for this purpose as Core 1 instruction. Every teacher is a language teacher because for our multilingual learners, we are not placing language in intervention. You cannot intervene on something that you haven't learned. So historically, well-intentioned, we have placed multilingual learners in intensive reading, in intervention groups, potentially in ILC without proper assessment. We want to cement and solidify the concept that all of us, no matter if you have, like I said, one multilingual learner or 30 in front of you, when we intentionally teach language and oracy, we are supporting every kid in our classroom. And this is a Tier 1 instruction focus strategy. So please, 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 if you have a lot of MLs in your building and they're in intervention, could you call us? Because we would love to come and support and how that can really, really be implemented in Tier 1.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the work that you all do with Marie Nielsen and the 15-day challenge and how it differs from linguistic considerations. So in this very first row, we're going to read right to left. We're going to model this, but in a moment, you're going to put in the chat a keyword that stands out for you. That's the difference between the two. So I notice in the 15-day challenge, Tier 1 equals strong core instruction. And under linguistic considerations, Tier 1 is accessible core instruction. So the word that sticks out to me, that's the difference, is accessible. So I would put in the chat, accessible. Thanks. Okay, so now we're going to do that for this second row. So everybody would read this second row and what's the word that sticks out. So 15-day challenge, focus on and in instructional cycles. A linguistic consideration is focus on language development. What sticks out as the difference, the word or the phrase? Yeah, language development. Intentionally focusing on language development. Row 3, uses formative assessment to respond for a 15-day challenge. Linguistic consideration, use language proficiency to scaffold. What word or phrase sticks out? Scaffold, great.
And proficiency, good call on that too.
The fourth row, the goal of the 15-day challenge is to reduce need for Tier 2. The goal of linguistic consideration is to prevent misidentification of MLs. Yeah, misidentification. We want to prevent that. And that last one, 15-day challenge emphasizes responsiveness. Linguistic consideration emphasizes equity and access. Great, yeah, equity and access is that part that sticks out. That's the difference.
And we want to name that these are not meant to be competing. They are meant to amplify the needs of linguistic considerations for your kids. And so we, of course, all of these things are good. And so the goal is to think about this holistically when we think about Tier 1 instruction. These things are beneficial for all students and they are crucial for our multilingual learners. All right, I want to show you a resource, and we're going to show you this resource knowing that you have additional opportunities to learn about this through various professional developments that we will have and we have had potentially even at your school. So thanks to the brilliant work of Valeria on our team, we have a LEADS framework that are 5 anchor practices linked to Tier 1. This is, if you read those 5 language and content, expectations, active participation, data-driven strategies, and scaffolds, all of our specialists are being trained on this specifically, not only the what, but then the how. And this is used as a planning tool through PLCs, through common planning groups that really anchors us in best practice. And again, these are best practices for every kid, but essential for our ELs. So if this strikes your fancy and you want to learn more, we have lots of additional PD opportunities that we send out weekly so that you can dive deeper into this as a resource. Just to give you another visual of this, sorry. No, you're good. Just to give you another visual, well, that's what it looks like when you click on the link.
There.
So just to remind us again, there's the umbrella of tier 1, right? Every teacher is a language teacher, and you may have been to some of our PDs around the district about that, but you can see then all of our different, not only content, but student identifiers under that umbrella. And so this is a way to think about what are those anchor best practices that are really going to reach every kid, knowing that for the purposes of this professional development, as our work with MLs, this is crucial for that intentional language literacy oracy development. All right, so here, I want you to guess, okay? You get to put in the chat. This is a national statistic. Some sources indicate that multilingual learners may only spend less than what percent of the school day engaging in really intentional speaking activities. This is not in the hallway, but this is in their class. What percentage do you guess? Are they really involved in structured speaking, intentional oracy activities? Can you put your number in the chat, please? What percentage do you think?
%, 5%, 2%, 5%, 2, 15%, 5 to 10.
All right, so here's the number. 2%. Yes, I appreciate the facial recognition and the reactions, right? That's not enough. 2% of their whole day. And again, if we've got 22% of our kids proficient on speaking, less than 2% of their time in class is not enough. Now, I want to challenge you. I was a high school teacher for 13 years, and I love my high school teachers. Sometimes they talk too much, right? Sometimes even middle school and elementary teachers talk too much. So not only does this tell us about this extended oral language practice is critical, but it's also thinking about who is doing the talking in the room, because who's doing the talking is doing the learning. Okay, now I'm going to show you something that I want you to remember. Any of you, how many of you went to high school in the 90s? Probably none of you, because I'm really old. Yes, I see a hand. Anyone else? Okay, so yes, you make me feel better about myself. Thank you. Okay, so when I took driver's ed, and I grew up in a cornfield. Yes, Emily, class of 94. Yes. So I grew up in a cornfield, right? So the football coach taught me driver's ed, like literally on the football field, and then he taught gym. And when he told me to grip the steering wheel, he told me to do this, 10 and 2. Okay. Now, some of you might have, I know it's changed, it's 9 and 3. But so could you put your hands up for me and show 10 and 2? And you got to do it. This is kinesthetic, tactile, you got to do it. Okay. This is really important. And we've got a video for you that you can watch later that is linked in this. But this is comprehensible input. This is how we understand language. If we are in front of kids and we have more than 10 minutes of input without at least 2 minutes of processing time, speaking, writing, talk with a partner, write on your paper, you might as well be talking to a wall by yourself. It is out the door. This is also kind of true with adults. Now, this is for our proficient English speakers, maybe our higher to advanced intermediate multilingual learners. As you are new to English, this time has to reduce. So if I were to speak to you in Thai right now, I could really only speak to you for about 2 minutes before your brain would be like, I don't know what's happening. Because I guess none of you speak Thai. Okay, my kids are half Thai, so I kind of speak it. But this is really, really important. So when you're in classrooms, when you're in planning, when you're supporting who are our kids, if we are talking more than 10 minutes without 2 minutes of processing time, that information is lost.
Okay. So you have all done the work of the 15-day challenge of the what. So you've identified in your CTs the boulders, the rocks, and the butterflies, and built those around those content standards. You've also done that work where you've done the how, where you've identified the activities that students are going to be using to demonstrate their understanding of those content standards. Language goes into that how as well. We need to consider language when we think in terms of how students will tell us or show us their understandings. So we're going to move into an activity and we're going to use this resource. So this is the WIDA Can Do. And if you're not familiar with WIDA, WIDA is World Class Instruction, Design, and Assessment. And it's basically a group that's come together to create language standards and assessments for multilingual learners and help us guide them through language proficiency levels. So in each of these books, you can see that they're broken out by grade level cluster. And it starts all the way down at preschool, pre-kindergarten to kindergarten, 1-2 cluster, a 3-5 cluster, a 6-8 cluster, and a 9-12 cluster. So in a moment, you're going to go into a breakout room and you're going to go and use this resource to do an activity. So I'm going to model that. So the first thing you're going to do is familiarize yourself with this learning target. Students will explain key ideas from the text using evidence by speaking or writing with academic language. So as a group, you will decide, are you going to have your students do the speaking or the writing? I'm personally going to have mine focus in on the writing. Then you're going to be given an article. Okay, so on mine, here we go. So my article is a 6th grade text. And I'm sorry, this is like in the way. Let me back up just a moment. When you're in your resources, and we can put this link in, you will see where you have access to each of these can-dos, as well as the articles you will need to do this activity with. I am modeling with an article that's not on here, so you have an opportunity to engage in an article all on your own. And my article matches the 6th through 8th can-do descriptors because it is a 7th grade proficiency text. So I'm going to click on that and open that. On all of your can-dos, you're going to have a lot of pages in here. We're really focusing on page 8 and 9. So page 8 and 9, just to give you an idea of how to read these, is you'll see on the left-hand side, it gives you the behaviors for that language domain. So this is the listening domain. Then you'll see the speaking domain, and on page 9, you'll see reading and writing. I'm going to focus in on level 2 multilingual learners. That means that I can expect my level 2 students to be able to do all of the indicators in listening in this level 1, and they're working on being able to do these in level 2. So I can hold them accountable for these level 1 behaviors and push them into these level 2 behaviors. Same for speaking. I can hold them accountable for all these level 1 behaviors, and I'm working at building proficiency in these level 2 behaviors. Okay. When you're working on this task, a helpful tip is to pull up both documents side by side. If you're not familiar with how to do that, click on the tab at the top, pull it down while you hold it, pull it to the side. It'll create this gray box. When you see that gray box, let go, and it'll split your screen. Then come over, so my can-dos are one side, and I'm going to put my article on the other side.
I am adding these directions to the chat, and they are also in your resource.
So here's my article. It is a 7th grade text like I had mentioned before. I'm asking my students to find key details from this text, knowing that they're level 2s, and I decided I want them to write. So I'm going to go down here to the writing section, zoom in so you can see that better. I can expect them to do all of these behaviors, and they're working on this. So I can see right here where they're working on extending sentence starters with original ideas, connecting simple sentences, using graphic organizers, and responding to WH questions. Okay, so I'm going to read my article. And I've already read this, but for the sake of time, you're going to be able to read yours, but I've read mine. I'm going to highlight some key details that I want my level 2s to come away with. So one of them being crested rats live in woodlands in Eastern Africa. Looking at what they can do, I'm going to think about a support that they might need to be able to write about this detail. Something that they're working on being able to do is using sentence starters to share an original idea. So I would provide my level 2 with a sentence starter of crested rats live blank. and then expect them to go back into the text and fill in that key detail from the details that we've highlighted. Can keep going down through this. I can see the rats don't get sick from poison. Again, so I'm scaffolding this with those sentence frames that they're going to add in. So I would give them the sentence frame, the rats don't, and then they would be able to fill that in. Okay, so that's the work we're going to ask you to do in your breakout rooms. You're going to get an article. We will give you the level of ML you're going to focus on, and we want you to use these can-dos to come up with the scaffolds that would be appropriate for supporting them. Before we go to breakouts, is there any questions? You can come off mute and ask, or you can type it in the chat. Yes, you will have 10 minutes to do this activity with your group. And we will be hopping in and out so we can support you, as well as the other program leads are here, so they will be in chats as well. Okay.
So I want to cue you after 10 minutes, we're going to pull you back in. And what we want to hear from each group is one thing that you came up with that was an appropriate scaffold based on the can-dos, but then also thinking about how can you support. Remember, the goal is tier 1 instruction and having all kids access the standard at grade level. So we're going to ask each of you after 10 minutes to share with us one thing that you found that you could do that would help a student to do that.
Okay, you're going to be whisked away. Oh, they shouldn't be able to join. Okay. Okay, Meg, sorry, you came in a little bit later, so I just need to put you in one. So just a moment, please.
No, thanks for letting me go in.
Oh, there. Huh.
Higher.
Welcome back. As you come back, please check the chat for the question.
For the what?
Welcome back. As you come back in, please check the chat for our discussion question. Wait till everybody comes back.
And you will need one person from your group at least to discuss this. We're going to have a group discussion.
Looks like we're waiting on 3 more. 3 more. Okay. If you just joined us, the chat is in the discussion, but it is what is one scaffold or strategy you discuss that will help our MLs demonstrate their ability in speaking or writing? And we'd love for at least one person per group to share.
We know you can do
right.
it.
I was the shy one, so they pushed me to the front.
Thank
They're
you.
forcing me to speak. All right, so we had the level 1 and 2 for elementary. So we read Fireflies, and we talked about how, and we were focused on speaking. So we talked about how we would really front load some vocabulary, chart it, write it down with visuals, maybe even watch some videos, because we talked about how, we're in Colorado. Who knows who has seen a firefly before or not? And then with key details, we would have the sentence frame, fireflies glow because, and then they could fill that in and practice repeating the sentence with partners. Fireflies glow because, and then they would continue to speak.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. Who else
We'll
has an
kind of
idea?
build on hers. We were level 3 for the Fireflies, if that's okay. So we discussed, we did the writing. And so we discussed that we would do some front loading with potentially like reading a book about fireflies, but also using like a thinking map with a word bank that gave them some vocabulary around that really content heavy specific language. But with those words, even at a level 3, using pictures to support like, what does evolution mean? What does that look like? And applying it like even to like the word like evolve, and what does that look like on a personal level, like from growing up from like a baby to a toddler to a, like how old they are now. Or so really like there's a lot of vocabulary, really content specific vocabulary in that article. So what are those like in picture form? What does that look like? And then allowing them to use those words onto a thinking map and then showing them how to write those into sentences.
Great, thank you.
Taryn and I will kind of piggyback off of that because we were also elementary level 3. We chose to focus on writing as well. In addition to the pre-teaching of the vocabulary with the visuals, and we also talked about the word bank and using that to build sentences. We also talked about stopping and doing like a quick sketch after each section to show some evidence of understanding along the way to kind of like track thinking and show evidence of that vocabulary showing up so that when students got to the sentence about the big ideas at the end, they had some kind of anchors along the way to make sense of their thinking.
Excellent, thank you.
There's one more group. Yes.
Yeah, we should have one more group.
Yeah, we did Fireflies level 3, but we focused on speaking rather than writing. So we also were using a thinking map. We thought it could be various things, but we settled on a flow map because that sequencing piece was important in both level 3 and 4. We also were looking at what they could do in level 3, but what next steps might be in level 4 so that we could start scaffolding up to level 4, knowing that it may take up to 3 years to make that jump. So really focusing on that sequential piece and then still using some visuals to help make sense of academic vocabulary. We also talked about possibly like building the flow map with like papers or tape on the floor so that kids could, like, as they say that part, move across it, so that it's really focused on the speaking side of things. And then also providing sentence frames that support using text evidence, like I know blank because.
Yeah,
Awesome. Thank you.
that's
Hey,
fantastic.
can I add on one other piece?
Please
for
do.
our group?
Please.
We didn't get to talk about this, but I think that would be also a perfect opportunity to add like a Kagan structure. So getting kids to actually speak about like the sentence frames we had for them. And yeah, so that's my thought. Any Kagan structure, just one, like
Yeah.
maybe even intentionally grouping kids. So we're having a model speaker for our MLs that would benefit from hearing that language modeled first.
Absolutely. And thinking about, remember we talked about oracy is that intentional speaking and listening. So Kagan is the structure. And then if we gave targets for language production, right, then that makes that effective listening and speaking within that structure. Go ahead,
Okay.
Tina.
So before you all lose that great thinking, we're going to ask you to click on the link for Padlet in your chat and upload those great ideas onto Padlet. And you'll see on Padlet, it has like elementary level 3, elementary 1 and 2, and you just hit the plus to add a new comment. I see Anne and Tracy already did that. Thank you so much. And anybody can add to that. It doesn't have to be the person who spoke. So we'll give you a few minutes to add those comments and see what other people also wrote. Go ahead.
Oh, even if you already said it, please add it or expand, because we want to capture your thinking so that this is a resource you can take with you. Let's cue them.
We'll give you about 30 more seconds to add to that Padlet, please. And this is something you'll have access to for the remainder of this school year. So please, we encourage you to come back and see what your colleagues add to it as they take this professional development.
And as you finish your thought, keep it open, because we're going to have you reflect on it in a minute.
Okay, so a couple of final thoughts on this. We want to make sure, like you guys all did a great job with like scaffolding up and making sure that we're scaffolding for students to access the content, that we're not changing the content. So a lot of times we'll see teachers with all the best intentions in the world will give our MLs a text that's lower than grade level, and that is not something we would want to do. Instead, we want to appropriately scaffold so they have access to grade level content. So if you're using Newsela, which is a great resource, make sure that you are familiar with those Lexile levels. Because sometimes, like even if it says it's like 10,080, we think, oh, well, that must be a really high school level. And that's just not true. That's a middle school level. So make sure you're keeping the content at grade level and you're adding scaffolds so that students can access the content.
I want to leave you with one final thought before we go to our next activity. Could you please hold up one finger? Hold up one finger. Can you trace what the infinity symbol looks like for me with your finger? Right? So why am I having you do this? Because these domains and language are inextricably linked. we talked about speaking and writing. Remember, language is not linear. Sometimes you need to speak before you write. Sometimes you need to write before you speak. That oracy and that literacy go hand in hand. Sometimes speaking or demonstrating understanding can be with a gesture. It can be with a picture. It can be pointing for our level ones. So think about that. And your suggestions were awesome. But think about in a lesson, you can infuse both of those things because they're inextricably linked and they build on each other and amplify. All right, so here's what we're going to do is go back to this slide. If you remember, we talked about translating and translanguaging. I want to give you a moment to reflect, looking at the beautiful Padlet that you created. I want us to think about where would be an opportunity within the scaffolds that you said for there to be translanguaging. Now, again, you don't have to know this in an expert way. You don't need to know the first language of the kids, but I want us to look at this. Can you see our presentation? No. Okay, we're going to share the Padlet again. All right, you see the translating slide? Yes?
Not yet.
No. Okay, we're getting there. Thank you for the cue.
There. I don't know why that did.
Yay! Thank you. All right. So want to root us in this again. We talked about problematic pieces with translation. That doesn't mean never do it. But when you're thinking about having kids access grade level content and they're in a room, where in those strategies could you infuse translanguaging, meaning drawing upon linguistic background? Someone did mention, for example, if you were in Colorado, you probably don't know what a firefly is. You're right. I mean, my kids went to Illinois and lost their minds because they'd never seen fireflies. So think about looking back at that Padlet. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to think about where could you draw upon first language resources. 2 minutes to think, and then I want us to come off mute and discuss. Practice. So it's okay to take a guess. Okay, I would love to hear 3 examples, can be from anyone or a group, where you think drawing upon the native language assets of our kids would propel them towards access of that grade level content. I want you to come off mute and hear 3 amazing suggestions. It's okay to guess. Or to even ask a question. It's okay. Learning space, it's important.
I'm thinking some of the kids may have experienced fireflies when, like we talked about, some of our kids that have lived in Colorado haven't. So, I mean, they could maybe have had, you know, some kids are amazing artists. Perhaps they could like draw a picture and share it with the class, or just use their kind of background knowledge to help build other kids' knowledge if they have that knowledge already.
Absolutely. And that's really important for background knowledge and the assets of our kids. Is there a way to pull from language with that that you or anyone else could suggest?
And you probably could give them some language support
Right?
while they're explaining.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I'm thinking about just naming it, like in your home language, this means blank. We say this. In English, we say blank, right? So maybe using just like words to describe a picture in their home language and then translate it to English or translanguage it to English.
Yeah. And you might even ask them, right? If you know your kids enough and you know that they could, you know, either draw a picture or say the word. If you think about the word fire and fly, those have a lot of different contextual meanings, right? Fly, I flew to New England. I was on the plane flying and there was a fly in my seat, right? Or I'm on fire or fired up or there's a fire in the kitchen, right? But then you put firefly together and it means something totally different. So thinking about that, how can you draw on their background knowledge in first language? Other things, and some of you even put this in here, but what is another example of translanguaging that you could do in this lesson?
We were talking too about how you could allow students to read a section of the article with a similar language peer and then kind of just talk about what they understand in their native language before discussing it in English as a whole group.
Absolutely. That is such a great way to value their resource and activate their contextual knowledge as well as their language. That's going to translate to comprehension and further acquisition of English. That's an awesome example. Another example that you thought of.
I think that you mentioned previewing before, Jen. So if you know the languages that are spoken in your classroom, let's say you have Spanish and Arabic, you can find a short video that talks about fireflies, and you can tell kids like, this is what we're going to be reading about. These are the fireflies. And it doesn't have to
Absolutely.
be long, just quick.
Yes, that can be that day, that can be leading up. That's a wonderful way to build that background knowledge and honor. They're also listening to their first language in that example. So you don't need to question, I wonder how well they can read, right, in their first language. Are there any questions either on any of the scaffolds that you named, language levels or translanguaging? Any questions that you have now? All right. So as we move to the end, we have a couple things for you to do before we close. One thing we want us all to do is reflect. We have some suggestions about an action step you could take. This is not exhaustive. There could be other action steps that you want to take when you're in your buildings, when you're in your common planning teams. We have some suggestions, like I said, utilizing can-dos, increasing student talk, diving deeper into data, increasing or varying oracy routines in your building or other. So I'm going to give you 1 minute to reflect and actually write your action step down somewhere. Put it in your phone, write it in your notebook, write it on the paper where you wrote Arabic. But I'm going to give you 1 minute to reflect on one doable action step and write it down. About 30 more seconds. And then could you please write in the chat, and would love everyone to please put this in the chat, but please write what your action step is. Go ahead and do that now. You wrote it down once, writing it down twice makes it even more probable to happen. We've got some good ones coming in. Use the can-dos, increase oracy routines. Increase oracy routines, can-dos, increase student talk time. I mean, a couple more responses. We really like to get full participation. While planning with teachers, focus on intentional oracy, can-dos and planning. That should be with you every planning time. Yes, Faye, print the can-dos and have them available for our CTs that we can hold on Thursdays. Encourage teachers to use this as a resource. Awesome. You ready? Okay. So thank you for doing that. We have a couple more things as we close out. Oh, yes, I'm going to read push teams to utilize the can-dos in unit planning. Thank you, Kaylee. And then Kimberly says, I want to leverage strategies offered in co-planning and other subject areas. Our ELS are using the can-dos in co-planning, so bringing those strategies into other areas. Yes, because every teacher is a what? I need someone to say it.
Language teacher.
Yes!
Language teacher.
Yes. Okay. Awesome. You all are fantastic. So we have time for questions, and then we have some resources, a survey, and closing. So right now, please let us know, what questions do you have? Come off mute, and we just want to give you space to ask us anything that is top of mind for you right now. Okay, here's what I would like to share with you. We are always available for questions. And as we share with you some resources, we have some amazing team members on our call. And so if you are one of our program leads, would you come off mute and introduce yourself? Because in addition to these resources you see in front of you, we want to show you who the people are. So let's have Valeria go first.
Hi, everyone. I'm Valeria Praga Rodriguez. I support mostly elementaries. I also have a couple of middle schools and a high school. I see that Ponderosa and Highline are here. I don't know if I have any of my other schools, but nice to see everyone.
Awesome. Meg.
Hi, everyone. I'm Meg Lucero. I am also a program lead. We all have the elementary, middle, and high schools. Excited to see you all here. Some of you are familiar faces, some of you are new, but really excited to see you all.
Thank you. Trisha.
Hi, Trisha McRae, also a program lead. Happy to be on here and to learn with all of you.
Thank you. Carissa.
Hi, everyone. Carissa Zavallos, also program lead, elementary, middle, and high school. Thanks for participating today.
Awesome, awesome. So on this slide, you can see that, and this is also included in your resource, but we have some really cool things for you. You'll see a Schoology group. If you join this group, you will get announcements from us as well as ongoing resources. Specialists are part of this, secondary partners are part of this. Some of you may already be part of this, but we really encourage you to join this Schoology group as a wonderful resource that can support you as a coach.
As soon as this is done, you will also get a personal invitation to that group, just in case you can't find it.
We also have, in collaboration with our literacy partners, we have created a literacy and language website for multilingual learners. So those of you especially thinking about students who are learning to read, using things like foundations, this will show you the nuance and the crossover that is really important when considering how multilingual learners acquire literacy. You'll see different student profiles, different research articles, different strategies such as cross-linguistic transitions, connections, sorry, on this website, but this is a plethora of information for you. So we just want to share that with you. We would love for you to take the survey now, and we are going to do a closing activity. So don't take your beautiful faces away. We want you to take this survey right now. We really value your input. We will adjust automatically. That's what we do. And your whole team, after we do these professional developments, will get to see the feedback from yourself. So please take, I'm going to give you 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes. Click on that link. It should be in the chat.
Well, it's in the bottom of your resources that you had at the very beginning, but also, yeah, your resource document.
Put it in the chat too. Yeah. We are also chat. So please go ahead, and we really value your feedback. More minute. All right, we really appreciate you taking that survey. And like I said, your whole team we'll send you a summary when we are done. We have 2 additional dates offered in February for this PD. As our closing activity, do any of you know what a waterfall is? A digital waterfall? Digital waterfall, not like TLC, don't go chasing waterfall, for digital waterfall. And you know that song if you're in the 90s. Come on. Okay, anyone know what a digital waterfall is? Yes? Yes? No? All right, so we are going to close with one word or phrase. Now, you got to think of your one word or phrase. Here's the important part about the waterfall. You are going to type that word or phrase in the chat. Do not hit send. You're just typing, no sending. So think of your one word or phrase that captures what you're thinking and leaving with. Type it in the chat. Do not hit send. Go ahead and do that now. So I'm going to count to 3 and then say send. When I count to 3 and say send, you are going to hit send and you will see a waterfall of all our words. Okay, we can do this. 1, 2, 3, send. More sends. We need more sends. Tier 1 capacity. Every teacher is a language teacher. District data presents a call to action. Thank you. Energize. Intentional planning.
Collaboration inspired.
Urgency. Yes. Look at this waterfall. This is amazing. Did everyone put their word in? I want to make sure we don't want any drips out there.
70.
Okay. So we really, really appreciate you. I really appreciate you named strategies, you named how you feel, the urgency around district data, and our kids deserve the absolute best. Thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing that mission with us. Please let us know with your feedback in the survey, but also we are always here. So if you would like us to be part of co-planning, if you want to do instructional walkthroughs with us, if your building wants PD, we are here to support you in service of our kids. So grateful for you and your time today. We wish you an amazing day. Stay warm, and thank you for your continued work.